We can't even last a week into the new year, and people are already making comparisons with AEW and WWE. I'm talking about the events that happened last night at Raw Legends Night, where Goldberg challenged Drew McIntyre for the WWE Championship, and people making comparisons to Sting and AEW. Are they the same? We're talking about it next on the Squared Circle Psycho Babble. My name is Michael Valenti. Joining me is Ralph Valenti. Ralph, the comparisons are there. Goldberg, Sting, are they the same situation here, or are they different situations?
I think that honestly, at the core of it, they are very much the same and very similar. Actually, one of the first things I did when this happened, because you knew the initial, you could almost sense it. Like as soon as Goldberg's music hit, you knew people were going to go all over social media and just crap all over this. And honestly, in some cases and in some arguments, rightfully so.
Mm-hmm.
My thought on it is this. What I had tweeted out as soon as this has happened, it happened was I said, the same people that are going to complain about Goldberg facing Drew McIntyre at the Rumble are going to be the people that are want to see Sting wrestle again. In my
But the
opinion,
difference is, one, Sting isn't wrestling, and two, if he does, he's putting guys
right.
over.
Well, that's what people automatically assume, and this is the counter argument to the whatever fan, because you know what, if you want to see Sting wrestle, that's your prerogative, right? If you want to see Goldberg wrestle, that's your prerogative too. Me, in my opinion, I think that Bill Goldberg and I think that Sting certainly have a place in the business. I think that they're two of the bigger draws of all time. I think that they were at two popular guys at the peak of the wrestling industry, and that's undoubtable. And I think that either whether it's Tony Khan or whether it's Vince McMahon, I think they're using their popularity, whatever it may be at this point, to their benefit. And they're smart business people and they're doing it for those reasons.
Mm-hmm.
I do not want to see either of them wrestle. I understand why WWE is doing it with Goldberg, and I understand why they're doing this match with the Royal Rumble. But I don't want to see Sting wrestle at his age, knowing that he's injured and all the issues that he's had with his neck. I also don't want to see Goldberg wrestle right now because of all the baggage that is coming with him, all of the downside and all of the pushback that you're going to get from the fans when this match eventually happens. And I think at this point, what I would say to the people that are trying to say that it's different between Sting and Goldberg,
Mm-hmm.
let's not pretend Sting, if he chooses to wrestle, and that's the big thing. Right now, he's not. If he chooses to wrestle, let's not pretend it's not going to be a high profile match, because I guarantee you it will be. You don't bring Sting in to essentially wrestle on the pre show or to wrestle on the buy in. Maybe it'll be a tag match, but I guarantee you it's going to be with some main event players. It'll be with Darby Allin, it'll be with Cody, somebody of that caliber. So if it's either the argument is you don't want to see older guys wrestle because you feel like they're taking away spots from the guys that are the future, whether that's in WWE or AEW, that's my stance on it. Or you don't have a problem with it. I don't understand why people are trying to say that they're different when at their core, from a business perspective, it's the same thing. You're using it for attention. You're using these guys to bring eyeballs to the screen.
I think what the big issue is, and I see this with a lot of people on social media, I've seen it in our community page where I put up a poll about Goldberg beating McIntyre at Royal Rumble on Twitter and all that. Their biggest issue is Goldberg's already won the match. They're assuming Goldberg is beating McIntyre for the WWE Championship.
Right.
And that's certainly not the case. I think, yes, prior history would dictate that. We've seen it with Kevin Owens. We've seen it with The Fiend. But I think this is a very different situation. You bring it up already. Like, this is where Goldberg and Sting, they're used to help elevate guys as main event players. With Sting, it's Darby Allin, it's Cody Rhodes, it's Team Taz. With Goldberg in this situation, it's Drew McIntyre. And
Yeah.
given that it's the Royal Rumble, let's not forget, folks, the Royal Rumble championship match, very rarely does the title change hands at the Royal Rumble.
Or main event.
Or main event the Royal Rumble. So who spotlight are they really taking in this match? Someone threw out Kevin Owens' name. Well, first off, Kevin Owens is in the Universal Championship picture on SmackDown. So Goldberg's not taking his shine away. The other person, Keith Lee. Keith Lee's, if Goldberg is in this championship match, now you have to assume, I don't want to assume, but you would have to think that Keith Lee's a favorite to win the Royal Rumble. Now, assuming that the rumors are true, Drew McIntyre, Keith Lee, Brock Lesnar in one WrestleMania match, and Roman Reigns versus Goldberg. You could still let that happen with Goldberg putting Drew McIntyre over, and it actually helps McIntyre as a big star, and it helps with Keith Lee because if he wins the Royal Rumble, now you have Keith Lee and Drew McIntyre after they put on what I thought was a very great match to close out Raw
Yeah,
Legends
it
last
definitely
night.
was. Yeah. And that was the one takeaway I had. I felt like if there was going to be an interaction between Drew McIntyre and Goldberg, I understand why they did it at the end of the show because they want to leave that as the lasting impression. I felt like that took a little bit away from the match that Keith Lee had with Drew McIntyre because the match was really good, and then it was just like, okay, well, on to Goldberg in this whole feud that we're going to have now.
Right.
Where do you stand on this? Do you understand why they're doing it? Do you want to
Oh,
see
yeah.
Goldberg wrestle? So you want to see this match?
I understand 100% why they're doing it.
Okay.
If I think it's the way they're going to book this is the way they book it, I'm 100% for it because I think Goldberg's name still draws to some of those casual
Right.
quote unquote fans, those
Right.
lapsed fans. And if you need to build the big star, and if Raw and SmackDown are going to be two separate brands, you need a top guy on Raw and you need a top guy on SmackDown. They've been building Drew McIntyre for the entire year. I don't see them just saying Goldberg squashing him in 2 minutes. I don't see it. This is a different situation from Kevin Owens and a different situation from The Fiend. And it's the same thing that we're getting in AEW with Sting. It's the same thing. The only difference is we know for a fact Goldberg is going to wrestle in a match. The only thing that may not happen is Sting is not, as of now, Sting is not wrestling. And if he does, and he has a high profile match, it's the same thing. I
Yeah,
think.
and no, I agree. And whether it's for a title or whether it's a high profile match, whatever the case may be, I mean, my stance on it is this. Do I feel like they're taking away a spot from a younger guy that can potentially wrestle? Yes, but you also have to look at the business side of this. Look, the fact is this. When Sting appeared in AEW, was there a bump in the ratings? Yes. Was there a bump in viewership? Yes. Did the video trend on YouTube? Yes. If you go on YouTube right now and look at the trending videos, guess what's trending? The video with Goldberg and the interaction that he had with Drew McIntyre. So to just kind of brush aside the fact that this guy was one of the pioneers or the top guys in the industry at the peak of the wrestling, I don't know if you want to call it the pinnacle of the popularity of professional wrestling, because the
Yeah.
Attitude Era, I think most people would agree, was the most popular time for professional wrestling for the casual fan or the fans that were going to tune in and watch it that weren't generally a wrestling fan. Now, if you're a hardcore wrestling fan, are you happy to see Bill Goldberg? No. Whose fault is that? That's WWE's fault entirely, in my opinion, because of the way they booked him. When Goldberg first came back, everybody was happy. Everybody was excited to see him. His promos were good. His match with Brock Lesnar was well received, as short as it may have been. Nobody had an issue with it. Where they ran into issues were with him going over Kevin Owens, with him going over The Fiend.
Right.
That's where they screwed this all up. Now, unfortunately for any of the younger guys, and whether this is at the fault of AEW, whether this is at the fault of WWE, whether it's at the fault of the talent, these guys just don't have the appeal, even at the age of Sting, even at the age of a Chris Jericho, even at the age of a guy like Bill Goldberg. They don't have the appeal that those guys have at this point in the game. If Stone Cold Steve Austin were to go on to Monday Night Raw next week, I guarantee you the numbers would go up. It's no different for these guys. They get attention from people that aren't watching professional wrestling on a weekly basis. And that's why the decision is made, whether it's Tony Khan or Vince McMahon. Hey, look, we need a bump in ratings. We need a bump in the numbers, and we need to draw attention into our product so we can hopefully push these younger guys or give them the opportunity to get the push that they want or the recognition that they want by getting these other people to watch. I mean, with a guy like Goldberg, the fan that used to watch however many years ago, they may be enticed to watch something that has Goldberg in it. That's no different for Sting. And whether you look at social media, you look at all of the sports outlets right now talking about the interaction between Goldberg and McIntyre, because it's certainly covered just about anywhere on all of the major sports networks. That's the type of attention you want. Like even if you use Sasha Banks, she's somebody who yesterday got some attention from somebody like Cardi B. Okay, good. That's what people need to do. People need to understand, like, wrestling is a business just like any other business. It needs to stop operating in a bubble and saying, okay, well, we want to see a dream match between Kenny Omega and Cody Rhodes at, some major pay-per-view. That's great, but that's only good for a certain subset of the fan, as big or as small as that may be. That's
Right,
not going to
right.
get the industry to the next level. And we just talked about this in our last episode.
We did.
So Vince McMahon is doing this, and Tony Khan is doing this too with Sting, because they know the type of ability that these guys have to draw. The numbers are there to support it every single time it happens.
Yeah, yeah, and the thing is, a lot of people are making the assumption, like I said, that one, Sting is only there to help bring guys over, which it might be the case. And they're making the assumption that Goldberg's there just to bury the current talent. Maybe that is. I mean, the record shows that it's not the first time it has happened.
Right.
So I understand people's frustration. What I think we're falling into here is we are not giving the benefit of the doubt to WWE. We are giving the benefit of the doubt to AEW. And granted, WWE has their history. AEW, they're a year into existence. So I understand why people might want to give them a pass. But at the same time, they're doing the same thing. And I say this all the time. You use that nostalgia, those old guys, those people that people recognize, to draw in viewers. And then it's up to the current talent to keep them there. That's why Legends Night happened last night. The point of Legends Night was to get some of those lapsed fans, those casual fans, to come back to Raw. And it was up to the current talent. Granted, some of the booking and some of the creative was god-awful, which is not their fault. But still, it's up to them to keep them there. Did Keith Lee and Drew McIntyre do enough last night where they kept some fans? I think they did.
I hope so.
I hope that, because that match was good. That match was really good. And now you double down on that and say, listen, Goldberg's challenging McIntyre. McIntyre spent the whole year beating guys like Seth Rollins, Randy Orton, AJ Styles, all, former WWE champions, long reigns with all of them. You had also beating Dolph Ziggler, who's a former world heavyweight champion. So his reign has been very good. And he spent it almost, with the exception of 3 weeks from WrestleMania to now, been WWE champion. So the fact that people think that Goldberg's just going to come in here and bury him in 3 minutes, I think is ridiculous.
If Goldberg goes over Drew McIntyre, shame on them. Honestly, shame on them, because look, I think people are certainly jumping to conclusions. I think that WWE has earned the reputation and the distrust from the fan base that they currently have, because they have screwed up, mainly with Goldberg and other people in the past many times. And that's noted, and we call them on it all the time on this show. But in my opinion, it's kind of like, if you're a fan, when is enough enough? Like, when do you draw the line and say, okay, they're at least trying to put things in a good place, or they're trying to get better. Now, booking wise, storytelling wise, I'm certainly not referring to that, because I could go on a whole nother video rant about all of the shortcomings of the storylines and all of that with WWE. But I will point this out. 2 guys are on top. Drew McIntyre has been pushed since last year at the Royal Rumble. He has had some of the best feuds. He's had some of the best matches. And for anybody to suggest otherwise, I don't know, you just don't like anything WWE does. Roman Reigns, since he has come back, his whole character is entirely different from anything that we've seen from him before. So the 2 guys that are the champions in WWE, on SmackDown and on Raw, are different than anything that we've seen previously. So for fans to say, okay, well, they do the same thing all the time. Do the storylines stink a lot of the time? Yeah. Is Raw unbearable a lot of the time? Yes. But I enjoy SmackDown mostly. There's a lot of things that I don't like about it, but for the most part, I can watch it and enjoy it. I do enjoy just about everything I see from Jey Uso, Kevin Owens, Roman Reigns, Randy Orton as of late, Drew McIntyre, and that's all fresh, and most of that is new. So I at what point are the fans going to accept that WWE is actually trying to put things in the right direction? Because to suggest that this is the same product that we were watching 2 years ago, where Brock Lesnar essentially held the championship hostage, that's not the case. It's just not the case. And if you're saying that, you're just lying to yourself.
Or not watching.
And the only other thing I'm going to point out about this, because the whole nostalgia thing, people I saw crapping all over Legends Night. Again, if you want to crap all over that, whatever. You're entitled to your own opinion. But my whole thing is be consistent. If you're going to crap all over Legends Night for WWE doing that, look at AEW. They got Tully Blanchard, who is a manager there. They've got Taz, a guy from yesteryear. They've got Chris Jericho, who was their first champion. They got Sting, who's 62 years old, who just made his return, who essentially, there's numbers to prove it. Right now, I guess he's their top draw. They brought the Rock and Roll Express back. Greg the Hammer Valentine, wasn't he on one of the shows? So to pretend that WWE is the only company that is trying to tap into nostalgia to bring fans back, it's disingenuous. That's what I keep saying. You want to make an argument, you want to make an opinion. If you want to be one of those fans that is going to choose AEW over WWE or WWE over AEW, fine, but be consistent. Fans right now, they're so stuck in this, I need to be a fan of this and not WWE, or I need to be a fan of WWE and not AEW, that they can't even keep their shit straight anymore. They want to hate Goldberg, but they want to like Sting. And they can't like Goldberg because they're scared that they're going to upset their friends. Dude, if you like it, just like it. If you don't like it, okay, fine, don't like it. But okay, well, Sting's different than Goldberg. No, it's not. They're two guys that were able to draw in the Attitude Era, in the same company, mind you, because when Sting went to TNA, I don't think he really drew all that great, but they were both on top in WCW. They both drew during the 90s. And both companies, WWE and AEW, are trying to tap into that lapsed fan. And if you're telling me I'm wrong, whatever, I guess that's your opinion on it. But that's why Vince McMahon and that's why Tony Khan are doing these things.
I love the last differential between the two is, well, Goldberg can't wrestle. He never could wrestle. That's
he never pretended to know how to wrestle.
He never wrestled. And listen, I've said it before. I'm not a fan of Bill Goldberg. I'm not. But I understand why they use him. And that's the thing. Like, if a guy can wrestle or not, but draws viewers, I don't give a shit if all he knows how to do is a headlock. The guy's drawing me money. He's drawing me viewers. I'm using him. If a guy wants to do all these flips and flops and dives and tope suicidas, but doesn't draw a dime, sorry, I can't use you. You're
Michael,
not
you're a
money.
Musician. You're a musician. You play guitar, correct?
Yes, I do.
Musically, just not talking about lyrics, not lyrical genius, nothing like that. Musically, is there anything complicated about the Beatles' music?
Not really.
Not really. But they are considered one of the best bands ever. They drew some of the biggest shows, one of the most popular bands to this day, as old as they are. They're legends of rock and roll.
Yes.
There's many others like them.
Right.
You don't have to be the best. You don't have to be the best at something to be the top draw. That's the main point. With Goldberg, nobody ever pretended he was a great wrestler. But, you know, for whatever reason, as much as it pisses off the hardcore fan, as much as it angers people, he still has some type of ability to draw. I don't know why. And again, I don't want people to mix this up and say that I'm trying to stick up for WWE. Because again, my opinion, I don't need to see Goldberg wrestle. I don't need to see Sting wrestle. I would love to move to the future of the industry with guys like Drew McIntyre and Darby Allin and Kenny Omega and whoever else. But that's the fault of the companies and the wrestlers for their inability to get to that point where they can pass the torch and say, all right, we're ready to carry it into the next however many years. Because unless you're a wrestling fan, for whatever reason, you're just not interested. Casual fans are not interested in the guys today. And why that is, I don't know.
And a lot of people are going to go in the comment section, well, it's creators' fault because they put him in all these bad situations. Mae Young gave birth to a freaking hand, okay? And still got that over. If you can do that, it's, you know, you could do anything. You could put any crap over. Like, we give crap all the time to Retribution, for example. Mustafa Ali is doing a fantastic job with what he's given. And I don't know if you saw the Raw Talk promo.
Yep. Should have been on Raw.
It should have been on Raw. Hopefully it's on Raw next Monday, but that's the frustration from every fan. They gave us the path. We understand that, but let us walk on it. The problem is no one wants to take that walk. And if they do, they blame someone else for when they can't find their way out of it.
Yep. You remember what Cena said to Roman when they had their epic stare down about 3 or 4 years ago?
About cutting a promo?
About, "Why am I still here? You wanna know why I'm still here? Because you can't do your job."
Yes.
Somebody get over. You don't wanna see Goldberg anymore, you don't wanna see Sting, you don't wanna see Hogan, whatever, that's fine. They keep coming back because nobody else is at the level they were at. Who's gonna carry the industry to the next level 5, 10, however many years from now, so that way, your kids can grow up and watch the next Attitude Era?
Right.
When's somebody gonna do it? It hasn't happened since Cena. Where's the next star?
Right. And
You
I
wanna
know
stop seeing those guys? Okay, well, somebody else has to step up and get themselves to a point where they are a megastar so they can carry the industry, put it on their back, and bring it to the next generation.
yeah.
That's what needs to happen if you want to stop seeing these old guys.
I agree, and I understand it. It might not be all the talent's fault. There's some creative that could make it better, but like I said, freaking Mae Young gave birth to a hand, so you anybody can get something over if they really try to make it go over. And it's just, we need something to change in the industry, and you might just need the nostalgia to push that over. And I've said that all the time. So the question now lies, what do we do to grow the wrestling industry? And we just had this conversation recently. You can click the thumbnail on the screen right now to check out that conversation if you haven't checked it out. Don't forget to share us all over social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, SCPB Podcast. And we'll talk to you on the next episode of the Squared Circle Psychobabble.